Welcome to the Ken McElroy Show. I'm your host, Danille, here with Ken.
Hey, everybody. What's happening?
So today we're going to be talking about a video that you did last week.
Yeah, we're trying this. Hopefully you guys like it. If you do like it, let us know.
Yeah, we're going to
this one
break
this
it down.
one did pretty well, and we got a lot of comments on it, and figured it'd be fun to kind of get behind the scenes for those who weigh in this morning.
But you have a big trip coming up next week.
This week.
Well, yeah, you leave
Thursday. This week.
You leave Thursday. Where are you going? Let everyone know.
Yeah, I'm going 4 days of tactical firearms training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Down in Texas.
No, actually in
Nevada.
But
okay.
This is all good, by the way, guys.
I listen really well.
This is how our conversations go.
I listen really well.
It's next week in Texas. No, actually this week in Nevada. So.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be careful.
Definitely.
And you're going to learn how to use a gun properly. Although you kind of already know how to use a gun. It's more just
so it's fun.
Polishing it. So to get started, make sure polishing your technique.
Oh.
To start, make sure you hit the like button. It really helps us out. Make sure to subscribe. We do these every single week. And make sure that you register for the webinar. I have a webinar with Money Honey Rachel. She scaled from 0 to 27, I think it is, properties within a few years.
She's a smart young woman.
She is. And she's going to tell you.
She's got an inspiring story.
Well, and she's going to tell you what she did, but more importantly, the mistakes she made. So I told her, she was like, I'm going to tell them how I did it. I said, you know what's more important than that? It's the mistakes that you made. So that when people are trying to scale their rentals or get their first rental or their second rental, that you don't make the same mistakes that she did make.
If you guys have kids or maybe you're, under 30, this would be a great video for people to watch. A great webinar for people to watch.
I think it's a good webinar for anybody. I think that if you own rentals and you're trying to scale bigger, or even if you're trying to get your first one, there's nothing better than learning from the mistakes of others. So you don't have to make them yourself.
And she did it.
She did it.
And she had she was on a corporate track and she made a decision and she did it. And so we've had her on before. But I'm excited to hear.
But this will be a live conversation. So you'll be able to ask her questions. It's free. If you go to kenmcelroy.com/webinar to register, it is going to be March 20. It is March 23rd at 5 o'clock Arizona time. And a lot of you have mentioned our time zones have changed. So we are now 3 hours ahead of the East Coast, I think, because we don't change our time. So we're on mountain time. And so I know there was some confusion, people trying to tune in.
Yeah, we thought YouTube did that for you. Apparently it doesn't.
Well, it gives them a reminder, but they have to, but a lot of people just show up.
For us, it's still 11 o'clock.
11,
yeah. In Arizona.
We don't change time.
Change, yeah.
Thank God, right? We're one of the only couple states that don't. So make sure you register for the webinar because it's going to be great. So kenmcelroy.com/webinar. All right, so we're going to talk about the fate of the U.S. housing market.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. Let's talk about, so we had a lot of really interesting videos on, there's a lot out there right now, as you guys know, on YouTube. But I broke this down basically into the components of, there's really a severe lack of supply. And that's, I think, one massive reason. And it started a long time ago, and we've talked about this in several videos. But there was 12.3 million households formed from 2012 to 2021. So let's just call that 10 years. But there were only 7 million households delivered. So what we have a massive shortage of housing. And and you guys, I just want you to know that it's not because you're smart that you're making a lot of money. You probably are, but you have to take a look. If you think it's you, trust me, I've been burned badly in the 90s and 2008. You have to take a look at the market forces, and then that makes you smart. But if you don't understand why something's going up and why there's this housing supply issue and why there's a rent growth issue and why you're making so much money on your flips, then that's on you. You know, you're not going to learn anything. And so what the purpose of the video was to show you guys how the inventory has been delivered, how the population has continued to grow. Now, there are people that are in the comments saying, well, population hasn't grown. Listen, like, it's grown at a slower rate. I get it, but it's still growing. Like, you know, there's still more people than there were last year. That's the point. Not that it's growing at a slower rate. Like, wake up. So, you know, so you have a lot of people coming into the market, and now, of course, we have this immigration stuff happening, as you guys know. And, you know, I don't want to get into politics, but we are on Arizona, and we have a lot of people coming through the border, and Texas. I have properties in Texas. So these are real things that are going on. In addition to, you know, the Afghanistan stuff, and, you know, those are all people. A lot of people came to the U.S. Now we have that happening with Ukraine. You know, people fleeing the war. So those are pressures on the economy. Those are pressures on housing. Those are pressures on services. And we're still sitting with this massive lack of supply, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone likes to discount, you know, people are having less kids and all these things, which is all true. But, you know, there's other ways that the population is growing, and like it or hate it, that is, you know, what's happening. So you're going to need more housing, you're going to need more affordable housing, and there just isn't enough.
Yeah. It's true that we're growing at a slower rate, but we're still growing. And I think, you know, I don't want to throw stones here, but you have to look at the facts. The facts are, you know, because we've been a general contractor for a long time. It's much, much harder to build something today than it was 10 years ago. Significantly harder. Now, there are these things in every town, every state called zoning laws. And zoning laws restrict where you can go, what you can do, how high you can go. And then you have your HOAs, which are even more restrictive in so many areas. And so you have all those things that kind of rolled out, and they've been around for a long time. But now, you know, it's essentially been somewhat restrictive. Then we have the land prices that have gone up. And now we have the construction prices that have gone up. So when you start to add time, you start to add cost at the city and county and state levels, you start to add the construction cost, and you start to add the land costs, all that's a recipe for high costs. That's essentially what that is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a supply and demand issue, right? If there's not enough supply, or there's a lot of demand and not enough supply, then the prices are going to go up. Plus, you know, all the building prices right now are going up exponentially. And, you know, if it costs more to build something, in order to make up the profits for it, you have to charge more in rent.
It's not if it costs more. It is costing more, period. So guys, I hope you understand this. If you've been buying a hamburger, let's say at McDonald's, and that beef costs the McDonald's franchise 25 cents more, that 25 cents more is being paid by you, period. It's being passed through. These costs, these expenses are being passed through to the consumer. They always have been. They always will be. As everything becomes more expensive. You know, a lot of people are pointing to the oil and gas. That's kind of the hot topic at the moment, and that's a big one. Energy is a big one. You can point at Biden for all the stuff and all the changes he made. Listen, the bottom line is it costs more to truck things across the United States. It costs more for people to do things, and all of that translates into the load of whatever they're carrying, and that is essentially going to be passed on to the consumer.
So Jason from YouTube has a really good comment. It's something I wanted to touch on anyways, but you know, with the Fed raising rates, you know, people are thinking that's going to help the housing market. Yeah. But the problem is, and he just pointed this out, is that if you get a rate that's about 3% or a low interest rate, and interest rates have now went up, if you do decide to sell your home and purchase another home, you're going to be paying higher interest rates.
Correct.
So there's more of a desire to just stay where you're at. I know that that's what's happened with my brother is, they have a very low interest rate on their home, and they are talking about perhaps, moving and getting another home. But if they do that, not only will they be buying a more expensive home, they'll be paying a higher rate. So, and then a lot of people, somebody else had mentioned, what about the people that, may foreclose. Well, the banks have really not wanted people to foreclose. So we've talked to people where they're allowing people to do 40-year mortgages and really do whatever they can in order to not foreclose, which is why we really haven't seen as much of a crash as we initially thought we were going to see. But those people now are in a 40-year lower interest loan. They're not going to move either.
Yeah.
So it's really that, the Fed raising the rate, interestingly enough, I don't know how much it'll really help the supply because now you're locked in and you don't really want to go anywhere.
Well, by the way, that's this week. So the Fed meets this week, and there's a couple things at play here. Not only are they talking about increasing rates. So when you increase rates on anything, consumption slows, period. That could be consumption of housing. It could be consumption of food. It could be consumption of autos. It could be consumption of going out. It could be whatever it is. Things change as the financed cost becomes higher. And so it for sure will slow things down. I think there's two things at play here. One is also people have a lot of equity now in their homes. So they're facing a decision on they can't really make a lateral move.
Right.
You have to move up significantly. You have to pay a lot more to get probably something comparable or something bigger. And it'd be nice to scoop that equity. That would be, but you of course you're going to pay capital gains on that. You're going to pay tax on that as you stair step up. Nothing wrong with having a little bit of cash. Nothing wrong with paying a little bit of tax. But that is the reality of it. And then to your point, that payment is going to be more.
Right.
And if it's a floater, then you're at risk at what the market's doing. So, but the real issue here, the fate of U.S. housing, and the whole point of this whole video that I did was that I think that, we're facing a massive affordability problem. And, if you think about this is pretty remarkable. Over 10 million people right now, they're 50% of what they make goes towards housing.
Right.
That's a lot. So that's some of the highest it's ever been. Plus we have this massive inflation. I think we trended after February something like 7.9% annually.
They say. All I know is it used to be like $60 to fill up my tank, and now it's $160. So I don't know.
So, but pre-COVID, guys, we were 5 million housing units short, if you watch the video. Then COVID hit, and what did that do? That disrupted wages. That disrupted more on the ability to pay side. Now we have this run inflation, and now this is disrupting the cost to add supply. So you have those factors happening right now, and it's going to get worse. So if you have a piece of real estate right now, and you've got good renters in there, I'm telling you, we're gonna have some serious rent growth over the next couple of years, and there's no solution.
Yeah, they don't have anything planned. There's nothing in the bag that they can do. There's things that they can try to do. There's things that they're trying to do, but there's just not really a solution.
The government's going to come out with stuff, and I talked about it in the video. They're going to come out with rent control proposals. They're going to come out with rent caps. They're going to come out with all kinds of things to help builders build. They're going to come out with relaxed zoning laws and things like that.
So something I thought that you said that was interesting in the video is every time you talk to people, especially people that really don't understand real estate, they think we just do rent control. Rent control is the answer. The problem with the rent control is that one of the problems is it disincentivizes builders to build. So we already have no supply. And now you're telling a builder, well, we're going to do rent control. So they're like, well, we're not going to build here. We're going to go build elsewhere. So now you still have no supply. So the cities a lot of them do know this, right? So that's why you're not seeing
I don't know.
it
These
thrown.
council people are idiots.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. They are. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. In my opinion, the government largely created the housing shortage because if you go back and look, now I'm going to go way back. So you go back to President Johnson in 1965. He created HUD, the Housing Urban Development. Then after that, Nixon actually created a moratorium on public housing. So don't ask me why, but it happened. And then after that, Reagan cut the HUD assistance. Then after that, Reagan and Clinton, they said, well, we're just going to replace existing public housing. So they didn't add anything. So every administration, including Obama and going back to Trump, they've all not really addressed this potential issue with this growing economy. And if you go back and look, we are growing, period. Number of people, not percentage of growth. Look at number of people. Real people moving to real apartments or real rentals. That's how it works. Real housing.
So RentStew has a really good, always love that name, but a really good question. He said, how can we have so much rent growth with 50+% of a paycheck going towards rent? Do you think wages will continue to rise to support that?
So this is the big issue, right? Wage growth is horribly not keeping up with anything. I mean, you can point at the landlord, and a lot of people do, but really what you should be looking at is the inflation. We're at 7.9%. Let's just call it 8 and round it up.
Supposedly.
Yeah, there's nobody that's getting that kind of rent growth. I'm sorry, wage growth. Nobody.
Right.
Nobody's getting that kind of wage growth. So what you guys need to understand, again, as utilities go up, as property taxes go up, as insurance rates go up, as the cost of labor and the cost of maintenance goes up, again, that extra price gets passed down to the consumer. Now, it's not perfect. It's not that they add it all up and go, okay, we're going to increase rents, because you can't do that way. But what I'm saying is, as everyone's costs are going up, even yours, if you don't own anything, you're trying to figure out a way to grow your income, just the same way a landlord's doing it, because our
costs are going up.
Our costs are going up dramatically in every way. Property
taxes, handyman bills, HOA costs, you name it, everything.
Yeah, and because their costs are going up. So we have a little handyman, Larry, and he's awesome. We've had him for years, but his fuel costs are going up. His costs that he pays, his guys are going up. The parts that he's buying for the things that he does is going up. So it's all being passed through, just like if you guys, the reason you're seeing these price increases at the store for food, a lot of it has to do with all of this stuff. The people that are bringing you the food from a transportation standpoint. So, the wage growth is kind of where we started on talking about this. It's not keeping up, and what's going to happen is we're going to be faced with we are faced right now with a massive affordability. And here's the problem: the politicians, they make it harder to add supply. We all know this. Just go on the internet and Google. Now they are going to initiate some kind of rent control or rent cap. I'm telling you, I had a conversation with a big lender, one of the biggest in the United States. I'm not going to mention who. And they said they're taking a look at where they want to invest their money from a debt and equity standpoint. Because why would they put their money into a market where the government's saying you're going to be capped? They're not going to. They're going to move to another market, another city, another county, another state. That's what's happening. So when Oregon enacted the rent control, this is well before COVID. Guess what? Most of the people that I know said, we're gonna redirect this money somewhere else, and that's what's happening. And so all it does is it takes away investment. That's what it does. It's not the solution. There is a solution that's needed, but that's not it.
Well, and something else, when you start talking about wage growth and if it's keeping up, it's not keeping up, but people do need a place to live, so they figure it out. So, for example, I was showing one of our rentals the other day, and I had a couple with a sister. One, the girl's sister moving in. They were going to 3 of them in a 2-bedroom, and they were just going to make it work. I also had a lot of roommate situations. I had one where it was, 2 women each had a kid, and they were going to have 4 people in there and make it work. So I don't think that wages are keeping up, but what I do think is that people are either moving outside the city where they can afford it, or they're shacking up together to make it work. And and you see this a lot. Like one of our contractors was talking to me, they're on the west side right now, which they feel we're in Phoenix and they don't feel safe where they're at, so they're trying to move to a nicer area. But in doing that, they know that they're going to need more roommates, and so we're just always so used to in the United States, each person having their own room and different things like that. But you'll just start seeing people share spaces.
Yeah, it's already happening, guys. Obviously, this is going to be more common than not common. People do figure stuff out. There's multiple solutions needed. One of the big ones, and one of the reasons why I did the video is we just literally, we have a 5 million, think about that number. We have a 5 million shortage of housing, 5 million. And that's over a long period of time. And so, as and one of the issues we have is what we call NIMBY, not in my backyard. So nobody wants development. Nobody wants an apartment project. Nobody wants a public housing project. They all bitch about it. They all want, they want rent caps and they want rent control, but they don't want affordable housing projects. They don't want public housing projects. So the right balance is to have the zoning relaxed, have the impact fees relaxed, and offer incentives from the government so that the private sector can deliver affordable housing, and then put some restrictions around that through the financing. So that is the right solution, or one of the solutions.
So, everyone always wants to know about a crash, right? And, we had talked about this before, and there would have been a significant crash or decline in the market if the government hadn't, intercepted every step of the way. But do you see, based on the new projections of like the Fed raising rates, that there's going to be a big correction in the market?
Well, the correction might be different than what you think. So I think that really we got to take a look at this war. And I think we got to take a look at the supply chain issues that we have, and I think you have to take a look at what the Fed's doing, not just those 3 things, but the Fed is also selling off, right, some of the bonds that they've been buying over the years. So if you take a look and you watch some of the Ray Dalio videos, you watch some of the videos by Warren Buffett. They've made predictions. They said they think that the stock market is going to crash maybe 50%. Now, I'm not a stock expert. I'm telling you what they said. So attack them, not me. I'm just repeating what they said. So, but the point is if I think you have to look at that, because the stock market is where most people's wealth sits. Mm-hmm. And this is part of what the Fed is planning on doing. Then you add on to that the increase in the interest rates, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to temper inflation. Mm-hmm. So you have massive inflation. I don't see that going anywhere. I think we're going to have big inflation next year, or this year, and even next year, unless something happens. We don't know where what's going to happen on with this war. Obviously, if Putin goes into Poland, then now NATO's involved. And, things could look very different pretty quickly. So you just have to keep your eye on that. These government sanctions, if you take a look at China is in big trouble right now. And, we're the biggest world consumer of Chinese goods. Obviously, Russia's in big trouble too. I think they're like 8th or 10th. I can't remember as far as the economy. So you start to look at these recessions that are going on in these other countries, because we are a global, we're very global in the way we do things. That's why they started cutting them off on some of these economic sanctions and things like that. So I don't know where all that's going to lead, but I think the one thing that you need to watch is the stock market. If the stock market crashes, rents are at all-time highs, housing prices are at all-time highs, and the Fed starts to tick this up, you better make sure that you have your plan B, your plan C, whatever those are. But I will tell you one thing that I don't think is going to go away, and you can look at this all through the different decades, is housing. People are going to need housing, and the government will throw money at either the tenant or the landlord, and that is what's been happening since as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want people to not have housing.
Yeah.
They want people to have food and a shelter. That's their,
right. So if you own shelter, it's just become more valuable, in my opinion, as you head into this next phase, whatever that is.
Well, if you do own real estate, you're in a really good position, because I was talking to a lady at the gym this morning, and, she has some younger children, and she was actually, this has become a popular topic just among two people working out that don't know each other, but she heard that we were in real estate, and she was saying that she's afraid her children will never be able to buy a house. And that's very legit fear, because, if prices do keep going up and wages aren't keeping up, it's going to be harder and harder for people to buy. And that's why we're telling people, don't sell your real estate. Hang on to it, rent it, cash flow it. If you don't have real estate yet, then start saving for it. Buy it, cash flow it.
Yeah, it's always been, guys, we've been talking about this forever, and if you're just acting now, that's on you. Right. We've always said real estate is a good hedge against inflation, and guess what? It has been. If you bought whatever you bought 3, 4, even 2 years ago, inflation has made it worth more. Period.
Yes.
Period. You can call it whatever you want. Yes, there's a shortage. I get that. Yes, as these demographic shifts and so we have supply issues, then yes, the existing supply of stock of real estate is going to go up. That is the whole point of this entire channel, actually. That's why I started doing this stuff, is to get you guys on the front end of that for times like this.
Yeah.
So and here we are.
Yeah, and people are asking, should we buy now, right? And we always say, it needs to cash flow. You need a cash flowing property. But if it doesn't cash flow that much, it's okay. It just needs, you don't want to be feeding it. You want it to cash flow. If it's your personal property and you can afford the monthly payment and you do a fixed rate mortgage, then yes, you should buy, because one thing we know almost for certain is your rents are going to keep going up.
Yeah, I'm still buying, guys. We have 2 properties in escrow right now, about 500 units, and we're one's in Arizona and the other one's in Texas, and we're buying because they cash flow. They cash flow right out of the gate. They cash flow year 1, they cash flow year 2, they cash flow year 3. I don't know where rents are going to go. There's all kinds of experts trying to predict where they're heading. And one really good resource is CoStar, COSTAR. And there's a lot of different services that go out and look for rent growth, all based on demand and supply and absorption. So if you just take a look at this, you can kind of be out in front of it. But again, don't buy something. If you guys are buying something on the hopes that it's going to continue to go up, not rent,
right?
Then that's a way more risky than buying something that cash flows with a tenant in it, and then using the bank's money to refinance out later.
So we kind of have somebody's kind of hating on the channel in
Awesome.
the comments. So Josh is saying that, we don't care about the prices being too high. We don't care about them at all. So I guess what we want to say to Josh is that, we're trying to help people. You can hate and you can be pissed and you can say these greedy landlords and my rent's going up, and you can do all of that, and that's fine, and it's fine you feel like that. But what we're trying to do is help people get into real estate so that they can then afford their fixed price for the long term and even make money on it. So.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. Obviously, you're in a lot of pain. Not sure why, but the market's going to do what it does. So hate on the market.
Yeah. And really do something about it. You can hate and you'll be hating 10 years from now. But what you really want to do is you want to save up some money and get in the game, because you're going to have a fixed rate mortgage. It's going to be easier to pay with inflation. You're going to help inflation work for you versus working against you.
Yep.
So we're going to.
I'm glad you brought him on, actually.
And then there's no hate against Josh. It's just, he's just, and I get it. Like if I was still a tenant, I would be pissed too, but you can be pissed and you can sit there and be pissed forever. But at the end of the day, you really have to do something about it to get yourself in a better position.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when people are, pointing their finger, they ought to look at the three that are pointing back at them, because a lot of times the solution, guys, we're all in this battle together. I started with 0 rentals. I've been kind of studying inflation. I've been studying gold. I've been studying the markets. I've been studying money. I've been studying currency. I've been studying management. I've been studying real estate for a long time. And so through that education process, I've now learned more. So hopefully, Josh, you take this information for what we're trying to intend it to be, is a prediction for the future so that you can make better decisions or good decisions. And maybe you've made some good ones, but...
All right. So we're going to hop into our premium questions. But first, a couple things. Please hit the like button. I want to try to get it over 200 here. We love doing these videos, and it really helps us out when you like it. Also, subscribe. We do this every single Monday. Secondly, is you have your Limitless Expo in June.
Oh, I just checked. We're 50% sold out already.
Nice. 50% sold out. So go ahead and go to limitlessexpo.com. It's not just real estate. We're going to be teaching you guys about crypto, stocks, real estate, investing, entrepreneurship, and it's a very open-minded conference. So we're going to have people with different opinions on things, and they're going to be experts in their field, and then you can learn.
Yeah, guys, listen, this is going to be fun. Like, I get asked to do a lot of real estate programs and seminars, and I said, listen, if we do, I'm confused too, guys. I'm confused about Bitcoin. I'm confused about all the crypto stuff. I'm confused about where everything's going. Is it deflation? Is it inflation? I'm confused about estate planning. I'm confused about stock investment and entrepreneurship, and I want to learn. So the goal is to bring all these really smart folks together that have their own opinions, and even people that have different opinions. We have somebody that's going to talk about inflation and somebody that's going to talk about deflation.
Yep.
So, I mean, how awesome is that? Because now you can sit back and learn from two very smart people that are going to be talking about that topic, which is very different outcomes. So same thing on real estate. This is not a real estate conference. This is going to be real people that have struggled. Yep. Just like everyone.
Yep, it's going to be great. So go ahead and sign up, and
we'll put that in the link, Jerry.
Yeah.
Can we do that, Jerry? Yeah.
Yep.
www.limitlessexpo.com.
And I think the tickets are on sale right now. I don't know when they go up, but I think sometime next week. So make sure you hop on and you get those, and make a vacation in Scottsdale out of it.
Yeah.
So for premium, for our first premium question is from Beth. Why do you like ground floor units when buying a condo for a rental?
Sure. Great question. So multiple reasons. One, if you look at just markets, typically ground floors, like I've looked at this extensively. Now I'm talking about units that maybe don't have elevators. Okay. So because elevator is a bit of a game changer. But let's call it a 2-story walk-up. Now there's a bunch of things. I wrote about this once on a senior property as an example. All the seniors wanted first floors. None of them wanted second floors. So I increased the prices of the first floors, and all of a sudden the second floor started to fill up. So that's number one. Think about all the stuff you do. You go to the grocery store, you carry your groceries in and out. Pet owners also like first floors. Now, I also understand that from a security standpoint, second floor could actually be a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So that is an issue. But personally, if you look at the history of pricing of condos, pricing of rent, generally the market does tip toward the first floor units a little bit more than the second floors.
Yeah, I mean, I've only had one person that's ever called and said, do you have a second floor unit? I've had about 50 people that have called and said, do you have a first floor? And it's usually because they have a dog and they want to easily let the dog out. They're older, so they don't want to go do the stairs. And older tenants are typically a very good tenants. They stay a long time. You know, and just like the ease, like I remember when I rented, I was on a third floor unit. It is a pain in the ass to get your groceries 3 stairs up. And this is me 20 some years old at the time.
Just imagine,
you know,
anything and everything you're carrying, couches, like, you know, furniture, like just a new microwave, like anything.
Exactly.
Like, and it just adds to it. So
the moving costs, moving in costs, the moving out costs, you know, and, and even with my parents with the Airbnbs, when they look at, they only want to do first floor because, you know, they have trouble with the steps. So it's like, you know, that is a big thing.
Yeah, so it's not an opinion. It's actually what people want. And so whenever I'm trying to buy something or do something, you know, that's always a massive consideration. So if you're buying a condo and you have the choice of the first or second floor, and they're the same price, my suggestion is to pick up that first floor unit.
Exactly. So if you guys want to be able to ask Ken a question on premium, make sure to go to kenmcroy.com/premium. It's only $30 a month, and the first 7 days are free. Just use, Jerry, what's the code again?
There it is. It's on the,
okay.
It's on the screen. We'll put it on the screen.
Okay, we'll put it on the screen because you can get 7 days free. All right. So Chad is asking, when analyzing a market, what are your thoughts about looking at external migration? So people moving in to support the real estate market versus people that are there.
Yeah, this is a good one. So, you know, net migration is kind of the, you know, the what we throw around a lot. How many people are moving in? How many people are moving out? And you know, it doesn't really matter who they are or why. So, you know, you can actually put the, you know, everything that the work from home people, whoever they are, into that category. So we have a lot of people moving around. There's migration patterns changing demographics right now in every county, every city, every state. It's actually interesting to watch. So, and I think that you're going to find that people are going to flock more toward affordability, safety, and weather. Those are, if you just look at why people move somewhere, just Google it. You'll see those are the top 3. And so just focus on that. And obviously you want to be, if you're too heavy in a market that's maybe too reliant on an industry, whatever it is, like automotive, or, you know, you grew up around in Akron, Ohio, where they you know, they made a lot of rubber and tires. And when the auto industry took a hit, so did your market, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that, you know, as they close some of those plants, right?
Yep. It affected the market.
It affects the market. So you just got to pay attention to that as well.
Yep. So Annie from Premium is asking, do you pay for spraying the home for bugs, or do you have your tenant spray?
I'll let you answer this one.
Well, you and I feel differently about this one.
Oh,
so
a little debate.
So I personally like to pay for the bug spraying because I want it to get done. So in your condos, that's easy because the HOA sprays. So this is more for houses. But I like to spray. I like to pay for the spraying because I want it to be done because I don't want a bug infested house. You like the tenant to spray because you don't want to pay for it.
Well, so first of all, we have pest control services at all our properties. And,
because you have apartments. Yeah.
So you know, the way we handle it is, and the way you can handle it is, you can have your rent, then you can actually carve out little things like if you have your renter, they should have renter's insurance. That could be one thing. That's $20. You could have pest control, which would be maybe $15. You could have utilities, which would maybe be $20. You could break that out for them, and have rent, have that not included in the rent. So let's say you could say rent's $1,500, and then there's these other things. And, you know, because that's pretty normal, like a homeowner would have. They would have to pay for that. So you could pass that on pretty easily. It needs to be done in the lease in the beginning. And then you actually control it. You actually engage the pest control company, but you're just getting it back through their monthly payment. That's probably the best way to handle that.
Yep, exactly. Gigi from Premium wants to know, once my mortgage closes, and this might not be a good question for you, I don't know, can I change the title to an irrevocable trust?
Oh, wow.
Do you think that's a
I don't know.
Mauricio question?
Yeah, that's more of a that's one more for a
attorney.
An attorney. I will tell you, I do have an irrevocable trust and a revocable trust, and you can put assets into the trust, and I don't think you have to change the titles.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's just my novice explanation. So, maybe we can help with that question a little bit later.
Okay. So Dave from Premium, what happens if my tenants who are dating go through a breakup and one moves out? Should I try to find them another roommate?
You had this happen. Why don't you talk about it?
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't think I had that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have that happen, but I've worried about it happening. So maybe I've told you a
even
scenario
better.
where
Yeah,
it might
okay.
happen.
Yeah.
So when you rent to two people and obviously they're dating, if they break up or something like that or anything happens, one of them may have to move out. And this is why it's important that they're both on the lease. So technically, they're both still responsible for the lease. So both of their credits impacted, everything else. If you want to try to be a nice landlord, you can try to talk to the tenant and see if they might want to move someone in and you're going to find it for them. But you don't really have to do that. They have to find them themselves or
I will
figure it
tell
out.
you this, like, personal issues are not your issue. So all I would say is, we have, in some cases we have student properties where we'll have, 2 or 4 people, kids in one unit. And this happens, man. Kids go back home, but at the end of the day, whatever sign we usually get co-signers. The parents are usually on the hook. Now, as a landlord, what they need to do to you is come to you and say, I'm going to take this on completely. I'm going to redo my lease. I'm going to take my girlfriend off or boyfriend off, or I'm going to replace it with somebody else that needs to come back on. But that is the right way to do it. But at the end of the day, just because they break up doesn't mean that they're not financially obligated.
Yeah, they both are. And that's why it's important to have them both on their lease. Because if you don't have them both on the lease, then there's really not much you can do if the person on the lease moves out and you're left with the person not on the lease.
Think of if they bought a car together or they bought a house together, same thing, right? Yeah. Like, the mortgage lender doesn't say, oh, you guys broke up. She doesn't
no worries.
No worries. Yeah, that's in the clause.
Yeah.
So, it's
or divorce, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
Homestead Engineering from YouTube has a good question. They're saying, what would you do with a good long-term renter that is paying way under market?
That's a really good question. I am I'm a big believer of having great tenants and allowing them to pay under market. So, right. I know that's contrary to a lot of things that we talk about here, but I think that you got to give a little love back to the renters. I did this for a long time. I had a renter. I was building a house and it wasn't quite ready, and I listed my house because I thought it was going to be ready. And long story short is I had to buy another house in between moving in my other house. So I bought a house and I was only in it for like 6 or 9 months or something because the builder was behind. And so when I got ready to move out, I rented that to a guy who had it 9 years. And he was the best. He would call up and say, hey, the water heater's out. I'm going to go get one and replace it. There was all these things he did that made my life easy. Mm-hmm. And so I would sit down and have a beer with him like twice a year. And I would go, hey, and he's like, yeah. I go, dude, we're just not going to keep it to market. So we would raise it a little bit, and we would sit down over a beer and raise it. But when he moved out eventually, because he ended up moving, we were fairly far under market. But he was grateful because I was having that conversation with him. So.
But I do think, like, for my tenants, I have a couple tenants that are great. They fix everything. They're so nice. They're really young. They're like 21 years old. So I kept it about $100 under market for them, right? So that's fair because if they go somewhere else, they're going to be paying about $100, maybe $200 above because they have some dogs as well. And I kept it a little bit below. And to me, I think that that's great because they're great tenants. But if you're way under market, you're just only hurting yourself. And if they would put a cap on how much you can increase the rent, rent,
That's
which
true.
the cities are trying to do, and you're way under market, it's only going to hurt you. So I do think that there is something with rewarding great tenants, and I do it. But you don't want to reward great tenants by being $500 under market, but to be $100, maybe $200 under market, I think that is a nice thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of people are asking, about this recession. Do you think we're going to go into a recession? What are you doing to prepare for the recession? So what are your thoughts on that? Because that is something on everybody's mind right now.
It's a valid question. It's a little scary what's happening. Well, I was talking to Kiyosaki the other day, and I was like, hey, have you looked at the price of gold? It's like over 2,000 an ounce, and we've been buying gold for a long time. I don't look at gold as an investment, but I do look at it as a hedge against the dollar. So there's lots of things that I do personally. We've got some cash, we've got some real estate. I've got a plan B as a, kind of a backup place to go if shit hits the fan. We've got our real estate. What I do is I want to be very diversified, and I'm always trying to. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this Limitless conference, is I want to learn. There are things that I don't know yet, and a lot of things, and there are things that I want to learn more about, and I want to try to find people that can educate me. So I'm constantly changing my position on things. So for me, it's just diversification. I want, the reason I started with gold and silver, I've got silver too. That is something that's universal. So for me, being able to have a 1 ounce coin that's $2,000, throw it in my pocket, I can go anywhere in the world I want and go to any bank I want and go get that replaced in dollars. So that is just one strategy, but there's a lot of things that you can do in preparation for this.
Yep. So Matt from Premium, and if you're watching, please hit the like button. It really helps us out. I want to get under over 300 now. I'm getting greedy. All right. Matt is asking from Premium. I'm working on doing a cash out refi right now with the intent to purchase more rentals. You speak about locking in a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I'm hoping and planning to do another cash out refi in 5 to 7 years. So I'm thinking about doing the 15-year fixed instead because it's less. What do you think?
Yeah, it just boils down to math. As long as you're fixing your rate, I think that's
Yep.
I would focus on that. I mean, if you can afford to do a shorter term, all that does is lower your cash flow.
But you do have to think about it, right? So you're doing a cash out refi right now with historically low rates, right? So I don't know what rates are going to be in 7 years. So they could be high. And so you do want to think about it, that maybe you should just pay that little bit extra money because you may be keeping it for 30 years.
Yeah. Again, it's hedging. All you're doing is hedging inflation. So,
because how much money are you really going to save in 5 to 7 years?
If you're fixing at 4 and inflation's at 8, I'm not that great at math, but I know that's good. So,
right. Yeah, exactly. So David from Premium wants to know, what's your opinion regarding shelf corpse? Which I don't even know what that is.
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so shelf corpse. We could probably leave it for Eric or Maurice.
Yeah, we'll find out. I haven't heard of that. Maybe if you could maybe clarify what that is, I'm happy to dig into it.
Okay. Yakai wants to know, what's a good way to start saving money for he or she's first property?
I don't think that first of all, you need your own money to buy property. So, as you guys know, that we talk a lot about that. We'd have to get into your own individual, where's all your money coming from? What are you spending every month? How are you saving? Is it hedging inflation? Is it not hedging inflation? It's a complex question, but I don't think that, I know you don't need money to invest in real estate. So it doesn't have to be yours.
One, you can also get a side hustle if you don't know people. If you wanted to use your own money, you can, do a side hustle.
Yep.
You can do other things. A lot of good apps out there that can help you make some extra money.
The PTSD that I had when you said that was savings. I mean, if your money's in savings at 1% or less, and your inflation is 8%. you're going backwards 7% a year on that money, on your purchasing power of that money.
Yes. So there's some funny comments I have to read over here at YouTube. So Jose said, haters gonna hate, ain'ters gonna ain't. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then Michael says, you might not want to let everybody know you're walking around with gold coins.
I don't walk around with them.
You don't
funny.
walk around with them.
Yeah,
I know.
That's funny.
So Robert is asking, I'm looking to get a triple net lease as to minimize the tenant headaches. It seems the one risk with commercial loans is they're not fixed beyond 5 to 10 years. Do most investors look to sell at that point and do a 1031, or what do they do?
So there's a couple of questions here. One, the triple net lease is those are nice actually to have. We did a really good podcast with Matt, and go take a look and listen to that because he's made a lot of money on triple nets.
We'll put it in the show notes after the show.
Yeah. So that's and he's a doctor and he started investing in these triple net leases. I'm talking about things like think Walgreens, think CVS, think those corner drugstores. You can actually own those buildings, and then they pay you to be there. They don't own their real estate. So and then the other was something around the multifamily loan, I think.
They only will do it for 5 to 10 years. So he's asking, what do you do after that? Do you do a 1031? They'll only fix the rate for 5 to 10 years.
Oh, yeah. No. Not necessarily. It just depends on what the rates are. In some cases, you might want to do a 1031, but obviously you want to fix that rate as long as you can. And then you have a lot more options. The other thing is some of these loan products, they're assumable. So think about that. So let's say you lock at 3.5% and you got 10-year at that number. It's a 30-year amortization, let's say, but a 10-year fixed. You can sell that loan off, and in 5 years you can actually not sell the loan off. Somebody can assume that loan. Now, typically, it's going to be more of a down payment, so there's going to be other factors associated with that. But a lot of those, that mortgage, multifamily mortgage products are assumable.
So Carlos has an interesting question from YouTube. So from what I understand, he has a property and it has a detached garage. And they want to make the garage into a rental space, but the city doesn't really want him. He's not allowed to do that, but he's thinking about doing it anyways. So what is your advice to something like that?
I'd be careful if you've already asked them and then you're on their radar, man. I can't imagine that they wouldn't allow an ADU. There's got to be a way to convert a piece of that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right. Actually, I don't know how a city on a detached garage can get involved and say you can't.
Well, Nick was saying that too, our friends that have a detached garage. But do you think that first you need to register it as an ADU?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely have to go through. I mean, you're going to have to pull a permit to do the work. And, there's going to be sewer and there's going to be plumbing and there's going to be electrical and all that stuff. But I haven't heard where a city says you basically can't create a rental unit, but maybe I could be wrong.
But an HOA could do that, right? If it's an HOA issue,
yeah. It could be an HOA issue. I'm sure he's accurate, but probably need a little more information there. And I'm not sure you got all great information because it doesn't. It feels like. Again, it's a private property right issue. If you can go through and it happens all the time.
Right. Yeah. They do that a lot up in Idaho where we go up there. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you check out the webinar with me and Money Honey Rachel. She's going to explain how she scaled her real estate with single family homes and condos and the mistakes that she made. And I think it's great to learn from people's mistakes so you don't have to make them yourself. KenMcElroy.com/webinar. And we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys. Cheers.